Welcome, everyone, to our Power Thinking, rejuvenating your amazing mind training for Wednesday. It is July 15th, midway through July 2026. This is our 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time edition, and I'm your moderator, Stanley Green. Always a pleasure to be with you and sharing this absolutely essential, not soft skills and nice to know stuff. And if we have the budget, maybe we'll do it, but absolutely essential set of strengths and skills so that you're prepared. Not a question of if anything ever happens, but when it happens. When it happens, we don't know when or what it's going to be,
Right.
but there's going to be something that's going to challenge us, to stay positive and to keep moving, even though there's a major setback. Could be weather related and a natural disaster, or loss of a loved one, loss of our own health, job, uh, income from a business, any number of things. And we are challenged then to stay positive, to keep moving. It could be an entrepreneurial endeavor that's going sideways, and you're kind of wondering, should you just throw in the towel? And that's why uh, most folks who start a business don't succeed, not because the business itself was a failure, but because they may have given up, when they were right around the corner from success. So this thing called learned helplessness is where it all got started in the late 60s. And we shared a video with you called Learned Helplessness Experiment: Why People Stop Trying. So it's not a matter of somebody being a failure, someone being a success, but the folks who were successful were faced with many setbacks and many failures, but they just kept moving and getting it, trying different things, pivoting until they hit success. The average person just wants to get to success, wants to have a life where it's kind of smooth and everything is kind of rolling along, but it just doesn't happen that way. Now I'm joined, really excited to be joined by one of our newest Power Thinking Corp mobile app users, Rochelle Hanna, and as my co-host. So, Rochelle, I just want to introduce you and thank you for doing this. Thank you most of all for being a Power Thinking Corp mobile app user and being part of our community, a growing community. We just had 5 people join us today. So we're really excited about seeing numbers climb. So welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you, Stanley. It's an honor to be here tonight with you. A little bit about me. If you would have looked at who I am on LinkedIn about right before Father's Day, I had been 6 years working with executives and business owners when providing resumes and LinkedIn profiles. Something very pivotal happened on Father's Day, a story for another day. But on the Monday morning, I woke up and I realized I just needed to pivot slightly. And I am now a legacy curator for those who've built something that matters. I work with CEOs establishing succession, kingdom builders clarifying their vision, and families preserving their story for their children and grandchildren. And for most of my most recent 20 years, I've worked directly with leaders, and I've found and I've learned that the most powerful legacy isn't a list of accomplishments. That's easy. It's the genius of their personal story. And
Hmm.
I currently live in the Twin Cities. My parents moved from Cleveland to Los Angeles, and I was born in Hollywood. But my heart has always been in the Midwest. And when my daughter moved here, uh, um, almost 30 years ago, I decided to follow her to the Twin Cities. So I'm here 26 years because this is where my heart is and this is where my work is. And my website for the legacy storytelling business or marketplace business, the website's not up yet. So you can find me on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. And Rochelle is spelled Roshael, right?
Yes.
So Just want to make sure people have that right. So I just want to give a shout out to some of the folks who joined us on LinkedIn. Layla Llewellyn, who was my co-host this morning. You probably heard from Layla. She says, good evening, Power Thinkers. And she is on YouTube and watching us on YouTube. We see, go next to Josette Peloton. Uh, and she's popping in between meetings to show support. Really appreciate you being with us, Josette. And she also said, mindset feels like I need to be on your show. That's what we deal with, and specifically resilience. So anyway, we shared a video with you, just a few minutes, but very powerful, talked about an elephant and what happens in training elephants, but also talked about the experiments done by Dr. Seligman in the late 60s. And we show it up on the graphic as it related to the experiment with dogs. They were placed in an electrical cage. At first, they weren't able to escape the impending shot. Later, all they had to do was cross the other side, but didn't even try. And this was for the group that um, initially they were put in a contraption where they couldn't escape the shocks. And then they put them in a contraption where they could escape the shocks. But because they gave up in that previous contraption where they couldn't escape, that same behavior existed, even though there was a way for them to escape. Now, you told us a story, Rochelle, about elephant that you observed,
I did.
right?
Stanley, thank you for asking. I actually had an up close personal relationship with an elephant, not like when we go to the zoo or we read about it. So that little rope or chain around their ankle. I actually lived in the Santa Clarita Valley, and we lived on 2.5 acres. And one of our neighbors was the owner of a circus, and they brought the elephant home all the time. So my children and I would walk down there. They'd pet the elephant. They'd feed the elephant. The elephant would come to our property. They put the hose on the elephant because it was hot. But it's so different to be up close and personal with this elephant than you hear about it or you see the cartoon or you know about it. The planned helplessness. There's this elephant that is huge, absolutely huge, and there's still this little rope or chain around their ankle. I mean, it's amazing that planned helplessness. It's right there.
Right, exactly. So you've seen it real
In
time,
real time,
and
up
probably
close.
wondered, yeah, why is it that this elephant didn't move? And we have people, human beings, that won't move. He can do just incredible things. Now, it certainly will be uncomfortable, um, and there may be setbacks, but we all have the ability to do incredible things. So, going back to that groundbreaking experiment, series of experiments back in the late 60s, led by Dr. Martin Seligman, that we shared with you in the video. Um, when I learned about this, I thought, my goodness, there are entire communities that, are feeling that, they may be victimized and may be held down. And while some of that could be true, but the reality is you can still succeed. You can find a way to succeed because if one person can do it, others can do it as well. So Seligman, after conducting those experiments with dogs and then with people, um, he started to look at the opposite. So if people can learn to be helpless, can they also learn to be more resilient? Can they learn to be optimistic, more optimistic? And as Layla, this morning's co-host, pointed out, that Seligman wrote a book called Learned Optimism. So you may want to look that up. He's written many other books as well, but Learned Optimism. And in that Learned Optimism, you'll probably find his references to the experiments that were done. And so in that, and from that, other studies and research began. And the research that led to what we are doing today was around resilience. And so, as part of that, one other foundational concept is that the understanding about what's going on in our brains, that our brains are processing 50,000 thoughts a day. And 78 to 80% of those thoughts are negative, unfortunately. Uh, so Rochelle, what did you think about that? That our brains could be processing
Well, as I
so
was
many
thinking
thoughts.
about the podcast tonight, I actually did have a few thoughts about learned optimism, and one I'll share with that everybody has. If you just think about a mom or a grandma who's no longer here, and you want to feel good or it's a holiday, what do you usually do? You want to make that macaroni and cheese, or you want to make that casserole, or whatever it is that was their favorite, whatever. And you literally can be having your meal with your relative who's no longer here, and your heart just is touched because again, it's learned optimism. And I think everybody could share that. That's not something that's unique to me. I have a few stories that are unique to me, the learned optimism, but I think that everybody can share. You want a hug from your mom or grandma who are no longer here, isn't doesn't that work, Stanley?
Oh yeah, definitely. And just thinking about those good times. I mean, when people, have loved ones who are not here anymore, they'll tend to, get sad. But then when you think about all of the tremendous memories, it should bring a smile to your face. I know my wife and I were watching one of these programs that she likes. I think it was NCIS, and there was a detective who kind of talked about actually finished the work that wasn't finished by his dad, who was a detective, and it was on a cold case, and he wound up getting it solved. And one of the things that he thought about, which initially was a sad memory but turned into a positive thing, was that in this, I think it may have been one of his first games when he was a youngster, and his dad was supposed to be there. And it turned out that, his dad couldn't make it, and he hit this home run. So he remembered the game, but he also remembered this disappointment. And he told his dad when he got home that, he was really sad that he couldn't make it. And he held on to that for a long period of time, that memory. And what happened was that what he found was that the date that he had that game was a date where this serial killer who actually uh, he actually put him away. The son put him away ultimately, but his dad couldn't solve the case. He had just committed the crime, and that's why his dad could not
Mm.
make the game, because he was focused on solving that. So that kind of brought some peace to him, that he realized his dad was doing the kind of work that he winds up doing, and it was really important to him to try to solve this so that the citizens would be safe. Um, so I kind of thought about how when I was a little younger and my kids were young, I was able to break away from corporate. Of course, my job wasn't a real dangerous job, and we were keeping citizens safe. But I made it a point to be an assistant coach and then a head coach in the sporting activities that children were in, because I heard from older people that you only get one shot at this, and they were regretful that they weren't able to spend that kind of time. And so now that I look back, my wife and I were talking about it. The children could say, "Hey, Dad was there. He
Dad
was
was
there."
dad was there. That's true.
Yeah. And when I'm long gone, they'll say, "Hey, he was there." And I can say that all three of the children are tremendous parents, and they love their kids and they're involved with them. And so that's one of the best things that you could ask for from that. So we have brother Charlie Lewis, who's says, good evening, family. So let's continue on this tremendous work. So learned helplessness. People get stuck, and they, no matter what you tell them, they just don't believe that they can get unstuck, and so they can get caught up on these negative thoughts, these repetitive thoughts. We had a lot of it back during COVID, if you
Hmm.
remember, Rochelle, where folks were every day, it was, okay, when is this going to be over? And, will I make it through? Right. It was a very, very tough time. And the reality is that there were things that, we could do to at least minimize the exposure and the negative impact of something like this. And so, but we had to really work hard to stay positive during that time. And so, what the University of Pennsylvania's Positive Psychology Center did was they came up with a set of strengths that they identified that resilient people, those who tend to avoid falling into this state of helplessness. And if they do get into a state of helplessness, because we are human, it can happen, they bounce back faster than the average person. And so it's the framework for what we do with power thinking. Every Sunday, to start the week, we send out through our mobile app notification those 7 inner strengths, so that, and we ask you all to commit them to memory, so that at any point that you know this particular strength is important. And we also go over the 7 skills. So those 7 inner strengths are: number one, emotion regulation, the ability to stay calm under pressure. And our hope is that Rochelle is staying calm as she's taking care of that alarm. And there it is. She stayed calm. She got it, and there it is.
And it
Gone.
was a spam call.
It was a
I
spam
thought I
call.
turned it off.
That's okay, right? But I saw you. You were calm. You didn't panic. Next is impulse control, and that is the ability not to say or do the first thing that comes to mind. Very, very important. So we were talking about, folks who unfortunately may break the law, commit a crime, and in many cases, it's a lack of emotion regulation and a lack of impulse control, where they may have been angry and did the first thing that came to mind. Road rage is an example of that, where someone could drive along, get cut off on the road, and they don't take it personal. They keep moving, and someone else can actually get into an argument, and ultimately that would ultimately escalate. So that's that combination of emotion regulation and impulse control. And then there's empathy, and that's the ability to understand another person's experiences and their emotions. Next is self efficacy, and that is the belief that you have control over your ability to succeed. Ultimately, it still gets back to us, no matter what the obstacles are, how impossible the movement to where you need to be may seem, but ultimately it can be done and you can do it. Next is optimism, and that is the view that no matter what's going on, that all things will ultimately have a successful outcome. Next is causal analysis, and that is the ability with a clear head to get to the root cause of a situation or problem. And then finally, reaching out. And that is connecting with other people as opposed to isolating yourself, and then taking action when faced with setbacks and challenges. So those are the strengths that we want to help people build. And those of you who have the Power Thinking mobile app, you'll see that you have an assessment that you can take. And and Rochelle, make sure you take that assessment so that you can get a sense for whether you are average, above average, or below average in each of those 7 strengths. And that gives you a baseline, and you'll know, what you'll need to focus on going forward. And then we have our skills. We have the skill of ABC, which we talked about last week, the relationship between the adversity one experiences, the belief about that adversity or activating event or trigger, which then drives the C, one of the 5 big negative emotions. And those 5 big negative emotions are anger, which is the belief, and Rochelle, I'll give you a chance to comment on that and your thoughts about that in a minute. The belief that someone violated your rights. Next is guilt. It's a belief that you violated somebody else's rights. That's why you may feel guilty. And then there's sadness, and that's the result of just a pure loss, a loss of a loved one, loss of a job, loss of income. And next is embarrassment, and that's loss of standing in a group. And then finally, anxiety, and that's the fear of a future threat. So in our skills, remember where there are 7 skills, and the first 3 of the 7 are awareness skills. Half the battle is being aware of what's going on with those 50,000 thoughts. Uh, so learning the ABCs is the first skill. The second skill is avoiding thinking traps. You get 50,000 thoughts a day, 70, 80% are negative, and typically will fall into these traps. And this was identified by Dr. Aaron Beck, one of the fathers of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. So we have jumping to conclusions. We have personalizing, where we beat ourselves up too much. We have externalizing, where we're blaming others. We have minimizing and magnifying. That's minimizing the positive stuff that's going on in our lives. But we magnify the negative. There's mind reading, where we think we know what the other person's thinking, or worse yet, we expect them to know what we're thinking. There's emotional reasoning. Hey, I'm I'm feeling anxious, so something's happening, something's going wrong somewhere. There's tunnel vision, where there's so many ways to get something done, but we're focused on just maybe 1 or 2 ways to get it done. And of course, there's overgeneralizing, where we're painting with a broad brush, with people, right, who may be part of certain, political beliefs, religious beliefs, or ethnic groups, and there's a lot of that going on where folks tend to overgeneralize. So those are the first 2. The third of the awareness skills is detecting these deep-rooted, below the surface beliefs that may be holding us back. And then there's challenging those beliefs. There's putting it in perspective, calming and focusing, and then real-time resilience. As we are practicing those skills, we're putting ourselves in a position where we can bounce back in real time. And that's how we overcome learned helplessness, by, working on these skills so that we can get stronger in the 7 areas that we discussed. What do you think, Rochelle?
Well, I'm a little new, but I would say that absolutely I agree with you. And before I came into the group, I believe self-talk was pretty prominent, to encourage yourself or self-talk. And as you were sharing all the different parts, I was coming up with the Rocky movie. He just did the work. He did the training, and he had a lot of self-talk, and that really does help, because it's the learned helplessness that creates that negative voice that's coming after us, and that negative voice are just lies, or this trauma that happened at some point. So yeah, self-talk, everything you said. And I would add, before I got here was a lot of self-talk and a lot of other things, but yes, everything you said is real.
Yeah, very, very real. I'm just happy that the folks under Seligman identified this, because there are many people walking around and they're just responding to whatever they're thinking, whatever they're feeling. And just because you think it, just because you feel it, it doesn't make it true. And I think once folks realize that, a lot of issues will go away, because there are many people that act on their thoughts, act on what they're feeling, and as a result, can get themselves into problems with their relationships, problems in the workplace, you know, just all over. And we find that no matter where you are in the world, these work. We've done this in China, and we've done it in Tokyo, and regardless of the culture, of the language, as human beings, we seem to respond the same way. to things like, I like to give this example. It's a 4 o'clock on a Friday, and boss taps you on the shoulder and says, "Hey, um, I'm going to see you. I need to see you on first thing on Monday, and hope you have a great weekend." Right? And whether it's in Mandarin, in Chinese or in Japanese or in English, folks are going to say, when I ask, "How are you going to feel that weekend?" Folks usually say bad. It's going to be a rough weekend because I think they're thinking the worst, right? So they have this anxiety. They fear that they may be fired or reprimanded for some reason when they could be brought into the boss's office on Monday and told that they were promoted. They've done such a great job. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, Stanley, my big takeaway tonight is you just said a word that really resonated. When we react to our circumstances, it doesn't go well. But when we respond to our circumstances, then we are intentional about making the right choices.
Exactly. And that's the goal here, to help you to respond in a better way. So Ann Wax, good to see you. She says, good evening to everyone. Thank you, Ann, for joining us. And comments from Brother Charlie Lewis. No one is an island. Agree with that. He mentioned something about Myers-Briggs. And he says, can't heal what you are afraid to
Oh, very
reveal.
true.
Like that. Like that. You can't heal what you are afraid to reveal. And there are folks who may not even know what to reveal. They're just kind of in whatever those feelings are, whatever their thoughts are. And the goal with what we do with power thinking is to give them the power to understand, what is going on in their heads and what they can ultimately reveal to whoever needs to know. No one knows enough to be a pessimist like that. So we got some little blurbs from Charlie. We really appreciate you, Charlie, for that. So folks, when it comes to learned helplessness, we all may experience it, and please be aware of other folks that you may know who may experience learned helplessness. Rochelle, have you come across any friends, family members that may have been stuck, or where you could see that they had, what it took to be able to get beyond it,
Well,
but
I
they
think
couldn't see it?
I've seen it with some of my clients, with the job seekers, even executives. They're so they're so grooved into the current role, and sometimes they've stayed too long, so it's toxic. So they do not have a clue who they really are when they're looking for their next opportunity. And just, I mean, they think they came for a resume and a LinkedIn profile, but they came for all the other. I'm a bit of a coach and an encourager. And so they came for all of
Hmm.
that. So just having someone hear their story and tell it well and encourage them, they're not what they were over there in the toxic environment. They are so much more valuable than that.
That's fantastic. So, Rochelle, final thoughts, and how can people get in touch with
They
you?
can get in touch with me on LinkedIn because my website isn't up yet for the new work. And so just reach out to me on LinkedIn and send me a message and tell me you were on the podcast today. And I am very eager to continue to do LinkedIn profiles, but also to move into the storytelling for the CEOs and the kingdom builders and for parents who want to, people who want to leave stories for their children and grandchildren. Thank you,
Fantastic.
Stan.
And folks, remember, and thank you so much, Rochelle, for being with us. And Rochelle is spelled Roshael. Rochelle Hanna, Hanna. Again, thank you for joining our tremendous community. We really appreciate you. And just let folks know, where are you located
I'm in the Twin
again?
Cities,
In the Twin Cities. Yeah. All right. Good
and it
old
was
state of
101 here today.
oh
It's a little
wow.
hot.
Yeah. It's a little hot in a lot of places throughout the country. So thank you all for being with us. I'll just say goodbye to at least a couple of folks here on the phone lines, and And I see Soyaka, good to see you, and Sharon Small and Karen Carla Hill and Claudia Nesmith and Gloria Hairston, Calvin Patterson, Layla Llewellyn, Bill Peterson, Greg Jones, and others. We appreciate you all. Make it a fantastic remainder of the week, and we will talk to you soon on LinkedIn and our platforms. We appreciate you as well. We had Brother Charlie Lewis and Ann Wax, and we see Lita Neal. Good to see you as well. And I think I missed Layla Llewellyn, and we had Gisette Peloton. Thank you all for being with us. Make it a great one. And Rochelle, again, really appreciate you and sharing your thoughts. Make it a great one. And
You're welcome,
we'll see you soon.
Stanley.